Welcome, everybody. We are really happy to have you here with us today. It's another AMA at the Crypto Zone community. We have a really great project here with us today. We have CLOAK from the Telos community, and Matthias here is here to tell us all about his awesome project, what exactly it is, and what they have in store for us. So it's gonna be a great one, guys. Listening as Matthias tells us what he has for us and also to get some good questions in. So, Matthias, it's nice to have you here with us today. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, just to kick off, can you give us a little bit of a introduction about yourself and basically your role regarding the project?
Sure. Um, so my name is Matthias. I'm German and I have been in crypto for a while. I have been mainly around in the EOSIO Antelope ecosystem, which is a certain family of blockchains. Um, People might know Dan Larimer, who basically created this blockchain tech. Um, this is basically what it goes back to. Um, my background is actually embedded systems engineering, but as I said, I have been in crypto for a while. I have been building CLOAK or formerly Zeros over the last 4 years, so it took quite a while to get there. Um, and yeah, we're now finally about to launch it. So we're gonna launch the shielded protocol, the product, what CLOAK actually is, on the same day that we launch the token, which is going to be by the end of this month. So yeah, that's just as a quick introduction, maybe.
That's really great. So, could you maybe give us an introduction to Cloak, what exactly Cloak is and what you guys are building?
Sure. So CLOAK is it's basically a shielded protocol similar to Zcash or Monero. People might be more familiar with that. Uh, Particularly lately, they have gotten a lot more attention. And so what CLOAK does is it is a shielded protocol that allows you to transact privately on general purpose smart contract blockchains. So instead of it being its own blockchain like Zcash or Monero, it is built inside a smart contract of an already existing um, general purpose blockchain. And this is probably the biggest difference and also what makes it stand out compared to existing privacy coins. Because the thing with Zcash or Monero is that yes, you have privacy on those chains, but you don't have smart contracts, so you can't build any applications, right? And then on the other hand, you have all these smart contract blockchains like Ethereum, and these EOSIO chains, whatnot, right? There are so many. But on those, they are traditionally fully transparent, so they lack privacy entirely. And this is great because for smart contract audibility and all that, you want this to be fully transparent at the base layer. You want to be able to see exactly what a smart contract is doing. But of course, when it comes to user interactions, it would be great if you could at least, somewhat anonymize that, right? And this is exactly the problem that CLOAK solves. It is a Zcash-like shielded protocol. So it obfuscates user transactions, but it is built inside a smart contract and basically exists right next to all other applications in the same underlying blockchain. So you know because on these smart contract blockchains, this is where you have these rich ecosystems, right, with different tokens and NFTs and all these things and these applications, right, DEXs, lending platforms, GameFi, and with CLOAK, you basically now have the best of both worlds because you can move your assets from your transparent blockchain account into a CLOAK privacy wallet, which works exactly the same way as a Bitcoin wallet or an Ethereum wallet and all these traditional cryptos. But you can still interact with all the applications on the same blockchain. So, but you do it in private when you use the CLOAK wallet for that instead of your traditional transparent blockchain account. So this is what CLOAK solves in a nutshell. And again, we're having the whole protocol fully developed at this point. We're about to launch it. It's already deployed on several test nets that we that are compatible with CLOAK. And yeah, so we're super excited to finally get to the launch.
That is really great. That is really great. So moving on to my next question, can you tell us concerning the privacies, what privacy guarantees are provided at each layer? We have the sender, the receiver, the amount and the smart contract interaction. Uh, can you tell us what privacy guarantees are provided and what's and which are optional versus the one that are mandatory?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's important to understand um, the the boundaries of this, right? So as you said, it depends a little bit on what you interact with. So if you transfer assets from your transparent blockchain wallet into a CLOAK privacy wallet, then obviously the sending account can be tracked, right? You can see that the sender sent, and you can see what he sent, what asset, but you can't see what privacy wallet the asset will end up with. So the recipient on the CLOAK side is always private. Now, then you have the other way, right? What if you move assets back from a CLOAK privacy wallet into a transparent blockchain wallet? Well, in this case, the sender is completely anonymous, but of course you can see what assets are moving out of the shielded protocol and into the recipient's wallet. So again, the recipient and the asset would be trackable. But now you have the case where you transact within the shielded protocol, so from one privacy wallet into another. In this case, nothing is traceable. So you can't trace sender, receiver, nor the asset type. And you cannot even distinguish between the different users that are using the protocol because they all use the same private key to sign the private transactions. So you're really fully anonymous in this case. And to the question regarding the question about the smart contracts, if you interact with your CLOAK privacy wallet with applications, smart contract applications on the same blockchain, then those smart contracts are also living in transparent um, wallets, basically, right? They are fully transparent because they are smart contracts. So they are exactly the same as transparent recipients. So if you interact with a smart contract, what an observer could see on the blockchain is that someone with a privacy wallet interacted with, for example, the DEX, and you can see what was traded, what has been traded, because all this is trackable on the smart contract side. But what you cannot see is who interacted with the smart contract. So all activity is still 100% trackable and auditable, because of the transparent nature of smart contracts. But what CLOAK shields is, everyone, all the users of the shielded protocol, all the users of the CLOAK wallets, basically, they are all the way it looks like on the blockchain is that you have the shielded protocol contract, which is also just an application, a smart contract. And this smart contract is interacting with all the other smart contracts on the same chain. And obviously, these interactions are initiated by users, right? That have CLOAK privacy wallets. But again, you cannot distinguish who is interacting. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I know it's very technical, but this is essentially how it works. You have basically the shielded protocol contract behind which all privacy users or CLOAK users are shielded.
That's really great. That's really great. So moving on, going into the architecture and the integration, can you tell us how easy it is for, existing Antelope dApps to integrate Cloak's uh, ecosystem? What does the integration realistically involve for the developers?
Wow, yeah, those are really great questions. You really looked into it. So this is one of the most exciting parts about this protocol, right? Because it exists, and again, I just repeat that real quick because this is really the big selling point, right? You you can actually interact with other applications, right? And now the question is, how difficult is it for existing applications to kind of plug into this protocol? And have their app basically privately accessible for their users. So this is a really good question, and this is a part that this is the most innovative part about the protocol, because there's no real prototype for that yet, at least not as far as I'm aware. So the way this works is, I introduced something which is called auth tokens or authentication tokens. You can think of them as NFTs, but they are not really NFTs. So they don't have UTXOs and all that. They're really just yeah small one-way identities that you can create at the click of a button. And these one-way identities is how you can identify yourself, um, or how you can interact with applications so that the application can book your assets under a certain identity, right? But you don't want to reveal your real identity, aka your Bitcoin wallet or whatever blockchain wallet you use that is transparent. You use these auth tokens to interact with applications, and this part is fully transparent for the user. This is exactly the integration part that a developer would do. He would basically he would basically expand his smart contract a little bit to not only support the native transparent blockchain accounts, but also these auth tokens. And for each interaction with an application, you can think of them like session tokens. Basically, it's very similar to uh, cookie sessions in Web 2. It's basically you use one auth token during one session. For example, you want to um, put a limit order on a DEX. Now you need to have an identifier, right, for this limit order, because you can cancel them, and also once it's filled, the resulting assets need to end up in your account. So the DEX developer would now go and add some functionality to the contract that would allow not just native blockchain accounts to interact with his DEX, with order IDs and all that, but also one interface based on these auth tokens. And I know this sounds super complicated, maybe for the average user, but as I said, the average user would have the exact same user experience as using his transparent blockchain account. There's really no difference, except that you have a different signature provider popping up, like your MetaMask, your whatever you use. In this case, the Cloak wallet would pop up, but you sign a transaction that does exactly the same thing, and under the hood, it's using auth tokens and the shielded protocol to interact with the application. And I tried to make it as easy as possible to integrate with the protocol. I will shortly after launch, we're going to open source a few little demo apps. So if you're a developer, this is going to be like your getting started section basically in the docs, and it will make it quite obvious how to use these auth tokens. It's very similar to transparent blockchain accounts. It's basically just an identifier. You just use the hash instead of your public wallet address, and the auth token hash, I mean, and that's it. Yeah, and it comes. So I provide basically an SDK, Cloak SDK, you could say, that makes it that easy for developers to integrate with Cloak. You literally just have to include a few macros and add some or perhaps duplicate some of your code for the private implementation, but it's pretty much almost the same that that you would implement anyway for your transparent interactions. So it was a long answer, but yeah, it's the short answer would be it's as easy as you could possibly make it without the developer having to deal with zero knowledge proofs or cryptography or whatever themselves. So this is all abstracted away by the protocol and the SDK.
Yeah, that's really great. And it's fine. We we like the long detailed answers. It really shows us that you know what you're talking about and gives us more information about the project. So just real quick to the next question, can you tell us how do you prevent privacy features from becoming a compliance risk for chains of validators?
Right. Yeah, this is one topic, of course, that people bring up all the time. So the cool thing about this is it works, CLOAK, I mean, sorry, it works the exact same way as, for example, Monero or Zcash. It has the exact same features, which also means that that you can always reveal your transactions for auditability, for example, right? So every transaction has a what's called a viewing key, and this is individual for every single transaction. So in your CLOAK wallet, you can basically um, grab this viewing key and share it with someone else. And now this person is able to see um, the exact details of the transaction, the recipient, what was sent, also when it was sent, right? Also critical for compliance. So CLOAK is really feature complete in that regard, and it allows businesses or individuals to fully comply with taxes and all that, because you can selectively reveal your transactions, and of course you can choose to whom you want to reveal them, right? And these viewing keys are basically your cryptographic proof. So there's no question, right? If this transaction is real, you're fetching the data right from the blockchain, and the viewing key really just allows you to view the exact details of this one transaction. And yeah, we're gonna add. This is still early stage. People have to understand we're having a working product. It's an MVP, but there's still a lot that can be yeah refined, let's say, but also not all features of the protocol are accessible yet through the wallet. So I believe, for example, the viewing key is not yet there, but this is all built into the protocol. Why? Because Zcash already built it into the protocol, and I really recycled a lot of their concepts, because it's proven it works, and these guys are really the top cryptographers in the space. Same goes for the Monero devs, of course, but Zcash the Zcash tag is just so elegant, using zero knowledge proofs is just beautiful on blockchains because you have these publicly verifiable cryptographic proofs in which you can basically encode anything. You can design constraint systems, or, in any way, and this is far superior than the traditional cryptography, um, which Monero is mostly based on. Not saying it's not secure, but yeah, with Zcash, with the Zcash, tech basically that they put out, all open source, very well documented. It already comes, with all the cryptography and what I just explained about the viewing key. This is all built in, so CLOAK really supports the exact same features as these, let's call them legacy privacy crypto. And yeah, I have to give credit to these guys. I was really just, taking the tech and made it work inside a smart contract, and, just expanded the functionality to support multiple token types, different token types like NFTs, because those don't exist on Zcash, right? On the Zcash blockchain or on the Monero blockchain, you can really just send one fungible cryptocurrency from wallet A to wallet B. You don't have different tokens, you don't have NFTs and all that stuff. So this is basically the innovative part that we provided, expanding the protocol to support all that, and making it work inside the smart contract. And this was the most challenging part. But yeah, long answer to the compliance question, I guess. I kind of drifted away a little bit, but so in short, yeah, you have viewing keys and you can selectively reveal. You even can, for your whole wallet, you can derive a viewing key as well. And that key will give basically visibility to your entire wallet, um, but it doesn't have spending authority. So you can, this is, for example, interesting for businesses, right? When you have a payment terminal and you want to display to the user that a certain transaction has been received, then you can put the viewing key on the terminal. You don't have to, be paranoid that your employees will steal your funds or something. So yeah, again, all built into Zcash, so it's also built into CLOAK.
That's really great. That's really great. So moving on to the next question, can you tell us more about the token utility and the tokenomics? Beyond the gas fees, what long-term demand drivers exist for the cloak token? How sustainable is the burn mechanisms, and what assumptions does it rely on regarding the network usage?
Sure. So the token also plays a really critical role. I want to explain this real quick because I really want people to understand that this is not just, a token for the sake of a token, but the token is actually critical for a certain aspect of the protocol. And I already touched on that earlier, but I didn't mention that the token was key to that. So, okay, how do I break this down? You have all these privacy wallets, right? The CLOAK wallets. And what I already mentioned earlier is that when you interact now on the blockchain, all privacy or CLOAK, users are using the same shielded protocol contract to interact with other applications. So the cryptography is built into this one contract, to distinguish all the assets that are in the protocol, who owns what. This is all cryptographically hidden, but the contract still enforces the ownership rules, obviously. So all privacy wallet users are basically interacting through the shielded contract. And there's one thing that needed to be solved, and this, which was basically the resource question. Because if you build something like this on a smart contract blockchain, you still need to somehow be able to push transaction on the blockchain, right? So those transactions need to be signed by a native blockchain wallet, right? The CLOAK wallet is just built on top of that. It's like a layer built on top of the smart contract layer. But on the base layer, you only have the native blockchain account and nothing else. So the the way this works on CLOAK is basically and this is something we're leveraging a feature here from these ESIO/Antelope blockchains that I haven't seen on any other chain yet, but they have a very sophisticated account and permission system. So for every native blockchain wallet or account, I use these terms interchangeably, you can define custom permissions. What it means is basically you can link um, a private key, a custom private key, to a certain action, and now this private key can only execute this one particular action. And leveraging this, you can actually build your own resource model on top of the underlying blockchain. And this is exactly what we did with the CLOAK token. So and I don't want to go into much detail now about the resource model of the ESIO chains, but every smart contract blockchain has their own model there. But you always need to somehow, either stake something, or on Ethereum you pay a gas fee, right? So on these ESIO chains, the way it works is you also have to stake tokens in order to allocate blockchain resources. And there are different resource types. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail. But the way the CLOAK token basically is being used to execute private transactions is that you have an account where the shielded protocol contract is deployed to, And this account is paying for all the resources that private transactions consume. And in turn, the users have to pay a certain fee denominated in CLOAK tokens in order to execute their private transactions. So there is a certain custom permission on this account that allows for the execution of these private transactions, but only if a certain amount of tokens is being paid, and this depends on your transaction fee. So it's very similar to Ethereum, right? This is a very familiar model. You pay a little gas fee, and for that, you can execute transactions. And Cloak works the exact same way. So I probably explained it really shittily, but you have the Cloak token plays a critical role to break this final link between user transactions and the blockchain resources that need to be paid for every transaction. So the contract only allows the execution of private transactions if a fee in Cloak is paid, and this fee, can be defined or is determined by protocol governance. Basically, it's somewhat fixed, but of course, always needs to be adjusted depending on the token price. But yeah, it's for the for the end user, it's just easy important to understand. It works pretty much the same way as gas on Ethereum. Except that, of course, with Cloak, you get privacy on top of that. So the user experience is exactly the same as if you use your MetaMask model. You always need to have a little bit of Ether in your MetaMask, right? Otherwise, you can't transact because you need to pay for the gas. And it's the exact same way with Cloak. So all Cloak users who want to use the protocol always need to have some Cloak in their Cloak wallet. Otherwise, they can't pay for the gas, for the transaction. And of course, it's going to be a lot cheaper than on Ethereum because the underlying blockchain scales a lot better. But yeah, this is in a nutshell how it works. And to add to that, coming back to your question also about tokenomics and all that, and the scarcity aspect. So there's from all these transaction fees that are being paid, a certain percentage, and this can also be configured, let's say 10-20% of that fee is burned forever. So the total supply of Cloak is fixed. We're gonna issue a certain amount of tokens in these different token auctions that we have. So it's a super fair launch. Maybe we come to that later. But this is how the token comes into existence. It's capped at 1 billion. And then depending on protocol usage, tokens just get burned over time, right? So the more the protocol is used, the more gets burned, basically. And this is also why it's important that we are able to adjust the burn rate, depending on the token price, but also, thinking into the future, you need to be able to, at some point, slow this down, obviously. But yeah, there's this, you could say, negative feedback loop, negative in terms of token supply. It reduces the supply with continuous usage, basically. And the rest of the fee is basically the revenue of the protocol that goes back to governance, because it also needs to be ensured that the protocol always has enough, real blockchain resources allocated in order to keep or be able to keep executing private transactions. So this is something that can't be automated fully. This is why governance is important as well. So, hopefully we're going to have a DAO at some point. At first, it's going to start a little bit centralized. And as things become more stable, we're planning to hand over the whole governance thing to the community, to a DAO who's then responsible for managing basically the revenue and the cost that the protocol has. But yeah, I know I'm drifting into a different question, so I'll just leave it at that. The CLOAK token is deflationary by design. It is the gas token of the protocol. It works exactly the same way as gas on Ethereum, basically.
That's really great. That's really great. So going on to the next question concerning the adoption and the use cases, can you tell us who is the primary target user today for CLOAK? Are you guys going to be focusing on the DeFi users or the GameFi builders, the enterprises or the privacy maximalists?
Right. So the way I look at it, and I get this question a lot. I don't have, well, let me answer it like that. Yeah. So this is a general purpose privacy layer, and it's built on general purpose blockchains on which you can really build anything. And DeFi is my main driver. I joined crypto because I got super excited about DeFi. I think money is still the killer app of blockchain, and particularly DeFi, all these applications related to that. And this was also the main incentive for me to start building CLOAK back then, because I actually wanted to do DeFi. And I also, by the way, built a DEX, which demos the integration with CLOAK also. Um, so this was my main driver behind all that, and because I realized, okay, DeFi is cool, but it's also kind of scary that everyone can see everything, right? And it's not just that. All this stuff is recorded forever, right? The blockchain never forgets, and this whole that everything is just transparent and trackable until the end of time is really scary. And I looked at privacy. Back then already I realized, okay, privacy is gonna become a thing at some point, and it looks like mainstream seems to catch on more and more, which is great, because I think blockchain is great, but this privacy thing just needs to be solved, right? So in order to start building DeFi stuff, I thought, okay, let's try to solve this first. And it was a very tricky thing, a very sophisticated thing to solve, right? But luckily, as I said, there were some great pioneers before me who brought up all these amazing solutions, right? Like all the ZK Snark proving systems that they built in Zcash, and there's Monero. So the problem was already solved. It just needed to be solved inside a smart contract. And to make it usable for these rich ecosystems in which you can basically build anything. So the target user or the target group of CLOAK is really basically the exact same target group for the average blockchain user, the average Ethereum user, or yeah, you name it, right? There are so many out there. Solana, all these blockchains where you can build applications and mint tokens and do NFT stuff and build games, and of course DeFi applications. All these users are basically a valid, or yeah, implicitly a target group, right, for CLOAK, because it is really meant to be used by any application, not just DeFi, but as I just said, this was the main driver to build this, because this makes DeFi like very competitive, right, with traditional finance. This is what we all want, right? I mean, or if people have been around for a while in crypto, this was the main mission, was to create um, a new financial world based on blockchain, based on decentralization. Uh, you own your assets, you be your own bank, right? This was the big tagline of Bitcoin back then. And smart contract blockchains kind of, make that a reality. But we're not competitive with traditional finance, right? Because everyone can spy on everyone else, and this is a complete nightmare. But if we were able to add a privacy layer to that world, which is exactly what CLOAK solves, well, then all of a sudden we become very competitive, right? Because you are even more private than in traditional finance, where your broker or your bank can always see, what you own, or the government, right, can always look into your account. But now with this privacy on these smart contract blockchains, you are cryptographically, your privacy is cryptographically protected. You don't rely on a bank, to not share your data with someone else. Your data is cryptographically protected. So this is far superior than traditional finance. And of blockchain, right, the intermediary can connect with strangers on the internet. that's exactly what block solves. So yeah, long shot, you know, bring us back. We really solve. I think they of gamify this element, and any application can really integrate that, and thus blockchain users are automatically target group of.
Matthias, I think we lost you there a bit. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. A friend just told me that the connection was super poor the last few
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah,
Sorry about
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's
Is it
fine,
better
it's
again?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So going ahead to the next question, can you tell us what real world use cases require cloak rather than benefit it from it optionally?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but it was about use cases, right? Concrete use cases for Cloak.
Yeah, the use cases that require cloak rather than just having cloak as a benefit.
Right. Yeah, it goes back a little bit to the previous questions. Who are the target users? And you can think of everything that you can do on a smart contract blockchain, and now you can do it in private. So almost any use case, except for a few little things where you, of course, want the transparency, so you can think of, certain voting applications, DAO, whatever. You might want to have the transparency, but Cloak now also allows you to do that in private, for example, right? So imagine voting in the DAO without anyone seeing what you voted on. Okay, so you can prove that you casted a vote, and it can be cryptographically proven that um, not more votes have been casted than allowed, but you can see the individual decision. So that's just one of many use cases. And of course, there's a lot more, which is touched on DeFi. Think of any DeFi application, trading on the DEX, um, lending some stable coins against your crypto collateral. All these things can now be done in full privacy, because applications can easily plug into the protocol and just provide the same utility that they provided before, but now with user privacy. And yeah, really there's no limit to imagination there, I guess. Anything you can build on a smart contract blockchain, if you want people to be able to do that somewhat anonymously or partial privacy, you decide that, depending on how you integrate with Cloak. And I think this is exactly what the space needs, the whole crypto space, in order to grow up, quote unquote, because the current state, having full transparency and total surveillance, is just scary, and in my opinion has no future. We need privacy layers like Cloak, for all these different use cases that exist on these blockchains to bring stuff to the next level, basically.
That's really great. That's really good. So I think I'm just gonna take ask one last question before we go ahead to the community. So the next question is gonna be concerning your roadmap basically and the future. Can you tell us what milestones must be achieved, before expanding beyond Antelope to like the bigger chains like the Ethereums, the Solanas and stuff like that? And
Mhm.
what basically is your plan uh,
Yeah,
for the rest of the year?
yeah. Yeah, you touched on the probably most sensitive point regarding this whole project. It is built for these antelope blockchains, and there are a few of them, and CLOAK is compatible with all of them, but none of them has a user base that is comparable with Ethereum, Solana, these top chains. This is very unfortunate. Just on a personal note, I have been following the space very closely, and I mean, particularly this Antelope space over the past. And while these blockchains are really technically like very mature and fun to build on, unfortunately, they just have never gotten really the attention that they deserve. I think, however, that a solution like CLOAK could change that. So it could attract users, I believe, particularly because you also have EVMs on chains like Telos, for example. It's going to be the first one we're launching on. We're super excited about this partnership, and the guys are super supportive. They have a small but decent user base, and also a focus on privacy and ZK and all that. But yeah, nevertheless, it's a comparable with these larger chains. Um, the way CLOAK is built currently and the solution that we have is tailored for these ESIO chains. So you cannot just take a smart contract from this chain and deploy it on a completely different blockchain stack. That doesn't work. So in order to make this work on other chains, it would require to solve few things. There are so many technical challenges and getting this heavy cryptography to work inside a contract. It really depends. There might be some hard limitations from some chains, but the plan is definitely to look further into that. The first thing that we're focusing on after launch is definitely going to be the EVM integration, but not EVM in general, as in perhaps EVM on Ethereum or perhaps EVM on whatever Tron or so, or Arbitrum, right? There are many EVM based chains out there, but they differ in the blockchain stack. Inside the EVM, this is where you have then the same smart contract environment for everything that lives inside that VM. But CLOAK is not built for EVMs. However, it can run on the same chains where you can deploy an EVM. And as I said, there are a couple of those. For example, Telos, the first one we're going to launch on, has a very, very well established EVM already. And the cool thing about that is if you are able to integrate with that, that makes the friction, for users to adopt, a different blockchain tech very, very little, because it's easy to take one EVM app and deploy them on a different EVM chain. For the user, it almost doesn't matter, because the user can still use his MetaMask wallet, for example, to interact with that EVM, because inside that EVM everything is the same. However, if this EVM is now sitting on a blockchain like Telos, where it exists next to the shielded protocol, you could make these native EOSIO applications accessible to the EVM. You can expose the protocol inside the EVM and make it integratable, basically, with EVM applications. This is definitely solvable. I looked into that already, but then again, it really is just a solution for the Antelope family. But it could make it could attract users more easily, because all the EVM users, EVM app users, can now potentially use the protocol too. When it comes to bringing the protocol to complete different blockchain ecosystems, this is something where at this point I cannot promise in what way this is technically feasible. As I said, there are many different chains out there, and there are also many other projects trying to solve the same thing. We have a working solution tailored for EOSIO. We might be able to to port that to other blockchains, I'd definitely be, you know, interested in looking into that, because obviously, as you said, also the user base is just a lot larger on these bigger chains. So, but again, I can't promise that this is even technically feasible. I want to be honest here, yeah. Again, as I said at the beginning, I also truly believe that having a solution like that on a smaller blockchain can already make that more attractive, for other apps and for other users to migrate to that new ecosystem, right? Especially if the friction is super low, and the EVM could help with that for the reason that I just laid out. So yeah, long answer, but yeah, to the most sensitive, most difficult question about that. Yes, it is a solution for antelope chains. I don't wanna talk that fact away. They don't have the biggest user base, but it is a cool solution. It is a very scalable solution, and who knows? Yeah, it could having a complete full-fledged privacy layer like that for a smart contract ecosystem can make the chain much more attractive to other users as well. I'm just gonna leave it at that for now.
That's really great. That's really that's really great. So I think that's all the questions from my end. We can quickly take some questions from the audience if you are ready for that.
Sure, I would love to.
Of course. So yeah, we can start taking some questions, guys. You can raise your hand and you'll be unmuted and you can ask your question. So let's see here. We have Jeremiah. Go ahead with your question. Yeah, I think we lost Jeremiah. Let's go next with Annabelle. Annabelle, your mic's unmuted. Go ahead. Annabelle, you can tap your mic and speak. Your mic is unmuted. I think we are losing a lot of people today. Let's go back to Jeremiah. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
You're good.
thank goodness. All right. Nice to meet you, Matthias. Love the projects. Love what you said so far. But I just want to ask a question based on the cloak documentation. So according to the website, you guys highlight on-chain privacy using zero knowledge proof. I'd love to know if those proofs are generated fully on the user's devices through the Cloak websites or Cloak wallet, sorry. And how do you balance proof costs and latency for low-end devices without introducing hidden weakening privacy?
So the question is about how we compensate the cost of the ZK proof generation. Is
Yeah,
it a technical
for
question?
for for low-end devices.
Ah, okay, got it. Yeah, this is actually a really good question, very technical. And so, if
Okay.
I let me rephrase the question and correct me if I got it right or not. But what you're asking is, zero knowledge proof generation is very computationally intense, right? Especially on the prover side. So, if you want to use the protocol, for example, with a mobile Cloak wallet on your phone, then you would have to generate these heavy zero knowledge proofs on this, as you say, very limited device. That's what you're asking, right?
Exactly. How do you
Okay.
generate fully on it?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. How to answer this? It's not. So I honestly, this is not yet solved. So we don't have a mobile wallet yet. It is on our roadmap, which is a little bit outdated, but just regarding the token launch, everything else on that is still valid. So this is definitely on our list. We want to try to get it to work on these, low end devices as well. and it's gonna be a challenge. What we have, but there's a lot to look into for that. So, for example, currently our Zcash cryptography library um, is using the Rust implementation of the underlying elliptic curve implementation, which is the BLS curve. Um, this even still is leaving a lot of performance on the table. So if you use the desktop wallet that we already have for CLOAK, this is optimized, or currently it only works also on x86 CPUs, which is like Intel, AMD, and all that. For example, newer MacBooks, they have different architectures, ARM architectures, which are also often the chipsets in mobile devices. And this heavy cryptography can actually be enhanced a lot by utilizing certain CPU features. But those are they vastly differ between these different chip manufacturers. So, for example, x86 architectures come, or CPUs come with different CPU features than ARM CPUs. To not lose too many people now because of this super technical topic. Um, what I already did for the BLS curve is, and this was a collaboration that was also related to the ESIO blockchain back then. The BLS host functions or precompiles on these envelope chains, they are written by myself, and also the underlying BLS crypto library that they use. And for building this library, I actually ported a lot of hand optimized assembly functions from the Ethereum blockchain stack, which is written in Go, but they have a lot of very talented developers there. So I have to give them credit for this because they were the ones writing all these. But in order to port this to a C++ code base, I had to basically rewrite all these assembly functions. And this is the core arithmetic of this elliptic curve. So this is exactly what you need to touch in order to make it work. Also, especially on low end devices. So you want to use the CPU features that the algorithm benefits from. And at this point in time, I haven't looked into other architectures yet. I haven't looked into the mobile, the optimization for that. This is all on the roadmap, and I really hope that the funds that we raise are gonna allow me to keep working on that. That would be amazing because as you said, like mobile is definitely a critical aspect also, and you obviously understand the implications of this zero knowledge cryptography, which again are super heavy on the prover side. And you're absolutely right. It's not trivial to get this to work, um, and in a way that is actually user friendly, because you don't want to wait 2 minutes for your ZK proof generation, right? You want it to be done in a reasonable amount of time, maximum a few seconds. I just want to take the chance real quick and also address this real quick that our GUI wallet also still is kind of slow. So sometimes it takes a few seconds for transaction to, get pushed because of the ZK proof verification, which is exactly what this question is about. This can still be improved by a lot for x86 architectures and desktop CPUs in general. For mobile devices, it's gonna be a challenge to get this to work. You're absolutely right, and yeah, I would love to work on that, but we don't have anything yet for mobile. To be very clear about that. I hope
That's
that answers the
okay.
question. If not, feel free to follow up. All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for answering my question, and I wish you success in whatever you have planned, and I wish you guys have your mobile wallets very soon. So, kudos to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering the question, Jeremiah's question. Um, I think we can go next now to Annabelle. I think your mics are muted, and you can go ahead now with your question.
Mm. Thank you very much, Jordan. So my question is, even if the protocol works perfectly, what common user behaviors can still compromise anonymity, and how does Cloak help users avoid them?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the question is basically, um, if I guess also if there are even ways how users can mess up their privacy using Cloak. Because you're right, yeah, this was always or this is a critical thing on a lot of these smart contract blockchains with these, I call them patchwork privacy solutions, which are not really, a full thing, right? Like these mixers, for example, you need to be still careful, right? You need to understand to a degree how they work in order to not mess up your privacy. Now, the good news about Cloak is, and that applies again to Zcash, Monero, all these mature privacy tech. There's really not many ways that you can mess up your privacy. And again, this goes back to the Cloak token also, which plays a critical role. Because, for example, if it wasn't for the Cloak token and users would push their private Cloak transactions using a transparent blockchain account, you know, they could somewhat mess up their privacy without maybe knowing it, right? Because they think they're pushing private transactions, but they leave traces because the account that is pushing that transaction on chain, which essentially means what private key is signing it, still leaves traces. So you can maybe not see what you did in private, but it can be said about you that you did something in private. This is why we have the cloak token. This is why the cloak token is so critical to break this final link between blockchain resources and privacy transactions, because only then you can be 100% anonymous. Because now people cannot even tell who is doing something in private. And of course, they can't see what exactly is being done in private. So there are these two aspects of it. And when it comes to mixing services or these, not fully mature privacy approaches that we saw in the past, you're absolutely right. It was sometimes not too difficult for users to mess up their privacy. And it's really devastating or bad, right? If you think you are private, but then you're not, it can put you at great risk, you know, and we've seen cases in the past. So, yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, is there other ways to compromise the privacy easily? Easily, certainly not. Um, if you use the cloak wallet, you are private, period. And there's no way that you can somehow leak privacy, quote unquote, or leak any information about you. You are completely in control. You would have to proactively share your viewing key for a transaction or your viewing key of a wallet. You would have to proactively share this information with someone to mess up your privacy, but it can happen by accident, right? So by just using the protocol, by just using the wallet, by just transacting and using applications or whatever, you there's really no way that you can mess up your privacy. This is foolproof, I guess.
Thank you very much for answering my question, Matthias. And thank you, Jordan, for letting me ask. Good luck on your project.
Yeah, thank you so much, Annabelle, for the questions. We really appreciate you. Let's go next with I love you, LFG. Your mic is unmuted. Go ahead with your questions, man.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. Matthias, great presentation so far. So, I'm just gonna move on to my question. And I entered the club community, and I noticed the community isn't very much active. Inactive community won't help give like a good impression for new members or investors entering the group. So I just want to ask, what measures are you implementing, to get the community active? Like raise, maybe contest game, something to keep the community engaging.
Yeah, great question. And this is something that we're, you know, struggling with for a while already. But now with the token launch, things are probably going to get a little bit easier. So we have a certain allocation also, a certain percentage, I think it was 5% of the token allocation is going to be reserved just for community incentives, basically. We're planning to do a lot more AMAs like this, but you were talking about community engagement. So the idea is also to have social media campaigns and all that, where we reward either in Telos or in CLOAK or whatever the native blockchain is that we're launching on. We're going to launch on multiple chains. For example, Volta is another one, which also has a much higher market cap, around 500 million, I believe, at this point. So we're going to launch there as well, and gonna try to have reward programs. Luckily, I have been joined lately with a few new team members. One of these guys is more focused on exactly that. He's doing mainly social media and all that, so I can focus on the technical stuff. But we definitely have a lot more planned, and we didn't do anything in that regard over the last years. It has been mainly me building the tech. We never, made a token sale. We didn't raise any funds yet. I didn't want that back then, mainly because I wasn't really sure if I could even solve this. And only at the point, basically, where that was clear, we really started thinking more about things like that. But it has also been a lack of expertise on the team, I guess. So I'm really, really blessed about the support that I've received, from the people that have been stuck around. Our Telegram is about 500 members. On Twitter, we have a solid 2,000 followers right now. Still very small, of course, but we're also in the very early stages still. And I think that's a solid base to work with. So over the next months, also in simultaneously to the token auction, we're going to have more and more incentive programs. So those are mainly going to be social media campaigns, but things like content creations, memes, and all that. Especially now that privacy is hitting the mainstream more and more. That is a great trend to take advantage of, to leverage for our, for CLOAK to get more visibility in the space. And yeah, obviously, social media programs would help with that. So this is what we have planned for now. We also hope that we're going to have a stronger marketing budget in the future. Again, it has been mostly self-funded at this point, but we have a working product, which is cool. I think not many crypto projects can even say that about themselves. Having a fully working product at the token launch, so we don't sell promises or white paper. There's no question anymore about, is CLOAK gonna work? Is it gonna launch? It's gonna be there. And hopefully through the auction, the token auction, we're gonna be able to build a budget for even more programs like this, but especially also more marketing and visibility, because this is what we're lacking the most. And I also hope that in addition to all that, applications that integrate with CLOAK, and there's gonna be a few. I'm not gonna um, talk too much about it now. There's my DEX, but there's also some other things, or let's just say some other talks that I've been in touch with. There's one big game that I'm also involved with, developed by it's a Web3 game as well. And yeah, so I've been approached already by several instances or entities, basically, about this topic. Integrating with a big game, for example, would instantly onboard a bunch of gamers, right, to the protocol. And those are all things that you can leverage for more visibility or for incentive programs like what you ask about. So yeah, there's a lot cooking, but nothing too concrete yet. But yeah, we're working on improving that drastically now that we're ready. Now that we got the tech ready, these other things are going to be way more focused on moving forward.
All right, all right. That's really great, man. Thanks for the Thanks for the explanation, and we should get the very best of luck on project.
Thanks.
That's really great. I think let's take one last question and maybe keep the answers brief, Matthias. Kevin, your mic has been unmuted. Go ahead.
You guys can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, Kevin, we can hear you.
Okay, so basically, I just wanted to know how does CLOAK manage the growth of, the zero knowledge circuit size as more advanced and multi-step DeFi logic is, executed privately. How do you guys manage all of that while keeping proof efficient, transaction speed fast, especially as features like the complex trading rules, staking mechanisms and governance action are, added over time. How do you guys manage all of that?
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, this is the question is more about cost of transactions through app integration, for example. Is that correct?
It's correct. It's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Zero knowledge proof verification, which is just part of any private transaction, is the computationally most intense part of the whole transaction. As I said, I was deeply involved in building these pre-compiles for the BLS curve. It's the same tech that is included in Ethereum and many other chains, because it's so essential for these pairing-based cryptography, like aggregate signatures, ZK proving system like Grow 16. And we were able to enhance the performance to the point that we were able to make ZK proof verifications in less than a millisecond on chain. So to put that in perspective, if you execute transactions, and also this differs vastly, okay, between the different blockchains. A transaction might be executed a lot faster on, for example, an EOSIO blockchain than it is on Ethereum. It really depends on the virtual machine that is used. But in general, you could say that if you have private transactions, which can include one or more zero knowledge proofs, for every UTXO that you try to spend, you would have, or not that you try to spend, for every UTXO that is being spent in a transaction, you have one zero knowledge proof. So 90 to 99% of the transaction processing time, aka the cost, is going to be determined by the number of zero knowledge proofs that the transaction includes. So if you have this part scalable, you probably can easily add, a more complex sequence of actions to that to execute, I don't know, flash loans, trades on the DEX, whatever you could possibly think of, right? I mean, especially flash loan transactions are usually very complex, right? Because they involve a whole sequence of actions from lending the amount, all the way through the different smart contracts until you pay it back within the same transaction. All this is supported by CLOAK. The only limitations is really the underlying blockchain. So for example, on these EOSIO chains, again, to put it in perspective, in this environment, you have a maximum or a hard limit at 200 milliseconds, approximately 150 to 200 milliseconds. That was a lot lower, by the way, when I built the protocol. It was 30 milliseconds only. And as I said, a zero knowledge proof can be verified depending on the circuit within 1 to 2 milliseconds. So you can imagine that you can add a lot of zero knowledge proofs to the transaction and still be able to add, to pack more actions like DEX trades or, you name it, flash loan transactions. You can add them to the private transactions and still be well within the hard boundaries of the blockchain. So I'm really proud of that. Or in other words, the protocol is very scalable. It scales very, very well, and it can be combined with any complex transaction that you could think of. There's really no limit there.
Thank you very much. You did answer the question in detail. I love the way the community is growing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for the questions. We really appreciate it. I think that's all that we're going to be able to take. But Matthias, I hope you enjoyed today's AMA. Some really good questions from the community, and from your part, detailed answers to every question.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun and great questions. Also, I'm actually quite impressed. You never know what to expect if you join a new AMA with a complete different audience. You never know, how basic is the questions going to be. So there were some really technical, some really advanced questions. So thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun talking about this. I hope it was interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was. We really appreciate you coming. We thank you so much for the time that you made out. But I think now we have to, wrap up the AMA. But it was a good one. We thank you so much to the community, for coming on here, listening from start to finish, about what Cloak is all about. Listen to Matthias. We thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next time, and stay safe, guys. Bye bye.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye.